Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now on today's video, I'm going to use a product that I've never used on a video before, and that is Sublimation HTV. Now I like to keep my video intros really short, but I feel like I need to give a little bit of context about this product, especially if you're new to sublimation. So what is sublimation? It's a process where you use a special sublimation ink to print your designs or to print your images before you add them onto a shirt. The beauty of it is because you can print your design, the type of design you do is almost limitless. But there are definitely limits to sublimation. Sublimation works on polyester or high polyester count shirts. You also get the best results if you are using a white shirt or a very light color shirt. Well, that's where this product comes in. It bridges a gap for those of us that use sublimation printers that want to either use a cotton shirt or a dark shirt. The other thing about this product is you're going to need some type of cutter that has a print and cut type feature. I'm going to demonstrate on a Cricut maker, but if your cutting machine and the software has a print and cut type feature, you can use this product as well. Now this product comes in two forms. You can buy it by the roll, or you can buy a package of sheets. It also comes in matte or glossy. I'm not a big fan of glossy designs, so I'm using the matte type. I'll also use my computer. I'll use some HTVRONT sublimation paper to print my design, and then I'm going to put my design on this small children's shirt. Again, I'm using my Cricut. I'll also use a weeding tool, and then I'm just going to have a piece of printer paper that I use as blowout paper in case the sublimation ink comes through the backside of my sublimation paper. For this project, I'm also going to use this small craft heat press. I'm using this small press so I can do it right here at the table. I'll also use some heat-resistant tape, and then I'll print my design on the sublimation printer that you see right back here. Now that is an Epson EcoTank 15000. It wasn't meant to be a sublimation printer, but when I bought it, instead of putting the ink in it that came with it, I put in Hippo sublimation ink instead. Now the fact that we're using a printer is also the beauty of this product. If you can print it, you can put it on a shirt. So if you want to print a picture of your dog or a picture of your child or your grandchild, you can add it to a shirt. As typical, I will also have links to many of the things that I'm using in today's video in the video description. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the intro is I'll also be using a design that I found on Creative Fabrica. If you're not familiar with Creative Fabrica, they have tons of designs, they have tons of embroidery projects, they have all kinds of things, even classes. You can buy the designs individually, or you can become a member, and if you do, you can download anything you want for no additional cost above your membership rate. So right now they have a 1-year membership for $47. They charge it all at once, and it comes out to about $3.99 a month. During their big Christmas and July special, if you take advantage of that offer, you also get a free gift. So just in case you're interested, I'll put my link in the video description below. Now this is a design that I already found, so let me go over to my menu, and then I'm going to click on my account, and then right down here to downloads and license keys. Okay, let me show it to you right here. These are so cute. They're little Dalmatian prints with the various grade levels on top of them, and they even have teacher. I'm doing this for someone going into preschool, and so this is the design that I'll use. I've already downloaded it, but I'll show you the process. You go to download, then you either go to your downloads folder or my recent downloads show up right here. I'll click on that, and then I'll double click on this to see what all's in it. I want the preschool one, and there's two options. I looked at them earlier, so I know this one is very distressed. That is not what I want. And this one it just has more solid colors. I like that better. Notice they're both PNGs. So what I would do is I'd go ahead and drag this to my desktop, so that I have access to it when I go into Cricut. Now that I have that image on my desktop, I'm going to go ahead and click on Cricut. We'll open it and I'll say New Project. And then I'll say Upload, Upload Image. And I can either browse or I can find it on my desktop and bring it in. Let's go ahead and say Browse. It's on my desktop, and remember it was called Preschool. Here it is. So I'll click on it and we'll just bring it in that way. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and say Continue. It looks good here too, so I'll say Apply and Continue. Now to me, this next screen is new. I hadn't seen this before, and I do run the beta version, so I see new things coming. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'll find the flat graphic. That's what you want to use for print and cut, which is what I'll be using today. So I'll click on it and I'll say Continue. At this time, I'm ready to upload it onto the canvas of my Cricut design space. So I'll click on Upload. Now you can see that came in huge. It is selected. Sometimes you can see the proportions up here. I can't, so I'll say More. And it is over 34 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and cover over that with the proportions locked. I'm going to change it to 7.5 inches wide. When I hit Enter, the height will change also. All right, that looks much better. So with the process that we're using, we are using the print and cut feature. We are going to print this on sublimation paper, then we'll cut it out of the sublimation paper. Then we'll also cut it out of the Sublimation HTV. And here's how you do that process. First of all, I'm going to click on Make. I don't need to save it. And it's prompting me to go ahead and print it. Now notice two things over here. First of all, I'm not going to print on that large a paper. So I'll change that to 8.5 by 11. And then I need to mirror my design. With sublimation, unless you're putting it under something that you can see through, like a glass cutting board, you're going to mirror your image. So I'll click on Mirror. Now I'm going to say Continue. And I'm ready to print the design. So I'm going to say Send to Printer. I am going to use my Epson EcoTank 15,000 printer. That's a printer that I bought and I put sublimation ink in it instead of the ink that came with it. And it's what I almost always use for sublimation printing. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave bleed on. What that does is it leaves a little bit of extra ink, whatever's on the outside of your image. So it's going to add a little bit extra of black. Sometimes with print and cut, that's good, because it gives a little bit extra just in case your calibration's off. Then I want to print this using my printer dialog or my system dialog. I'll go ahead and click this on and I'll say Print. Now most of the time it's hiding back here somewhere, and there it is. And so right down here, it's kind of cut off, but right down here is the print button. Once you send your image to the printer, the screen in Cricut Design Space changes to this. What I need to do now is I need to determine which setting I want to use to cut my sublimation paper. What I have found is I like to use this copy paper, and then I like to add more pressure. Now we're going to go ahead and put the paper onto the Cricut mat. And you want to get it as straight as possible. You want it up in the top left corner. I don't know if you can see it, but my load button is already flashing. So we'll put the mat under here. Make sure you get under the little clips, and we'll load it into the machine. Now that it's loaded, the cut button is flashing, so we'll press it. At this time, the Cricut's looking at those registration marks, and here in just a minute, it's going to start cutting around the design. Now we're done cutting, so we'll go ahead and unload it. Now I can tell it's not a perfect cut. I see more black up here than I do down here. I'm okay with that. We're going to move on. Let me go ahead and weed this so you can see what I'm talking about. You see how the print and cut didn't really cut quite in the center of the black line? I probably should have done a calibration, but I think this is cute. I'm going to move on with this. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my mat over, try to hold my paper down kind of flat, and remove my mat from the paper. Now notice it's mirrored because in a little bit we're going to flip it over this way and press it on to our Sublimation HTV. Speaking of that, we need to cut it. So on the Cricut, I'm going to go ahead and say done. Then I'm going to go back to my design and I'm going to change it to a basic cut. This is going to be the Sublimation HTV that I cut out. So we'll say make. Now we're going to load some of that sublimation vinyl onto the mat. Now I'm going to use a sheet out of here. The shiny side is the carrier sheet, so of course that goes down against the mat. All right, I have that loaded. It's not perfect, but I'll make sure on my screen that I'm cutting low enough that I don't have an issue with that. Now on the screen it looks like it's okay, but notice it's not mirrored. We're going to mirror this also, and we'll say continue. To cut the Sublimation HTV, I'm going to use this everyday iron-on setting. My load light's flashing, so I'm ready to cut. Once again, we're going to load it, making sure it goes under the clips, and then we're going to press the load arrow. Now that it's loaded, it's ready to cut, so we'll press that C. All right, let's unload this, and we're done with the Cricut, so I'll go ahead and close it up. Just like before, I flip my mat over so I can hold my material somewhat flat, and I remove the mat from the material. Now, I barely used any of this, and I don't want to waste all this, so I'm not going to weed yet. I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. What's left will make a lot of different projects. Now we're going to weed this just like any other HTV. Now when you're doing this process, you probably don't want a lot of small pieces inside there. That would make it very, very difficult. But I think this design is going to be perfect. So I'm going to lay this on my shirt, press it on. I'll let it cool down. I'll take the top off, then we'll press the sublimation image on. When I put my image ink side down, you can see everything cut the right way. Typically, I use my HTVRONT when I'm doing this process, but this is a small press, it's a small shirt, and I wanted to do everything right here so you could see it. I have my heat press set to 310 degrees for 10 seconds. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and preheat my shirt. Again, this is a little 5T shirt, or 5T for toddler t-shirt. I want to get my collar off of there. And I'll pre-press this for 10 seconds. Now that I've done that, the first layer that goes down is your HTV vinyl. Okay, so it goes like this, and I think that looks pretty good. Maybe raise it up just a little bit. All right, that looks fairly centered, looks fairly straight. So let's go ahead and press this again, 310 degrees for 10 seconds. At least that's the setting I like. Now you want to do this with some pretty good pressure. But again, I've done it with the HTVRONT more than once, but I did replace my HTVRONT pad with a better pad. Something that gives you better pressure. Now this is a cool peel, or at least I do it as a cool peel. They might call it a warm peel, but I'm going to let this cool all the way down. Now while I'm waiting for this to cool all the way down, let's go ahead and change our temperature. I want to go ahead and bump it up to 385. And I'm going to press that for 45 seconds. All right, while that's heating up, let's go ahead and peel this off. Now the carrier sheet comes off a little bit more difficult than some of the HTVs, but it's fine. It stayed on very nicely. Let me show you. Now let's go ahead and put our design down on it. And I didn't talk about heat tape at the beginning of the video, but let me grab that. Now here's the one downside to this process. If you don't get this exactly in the right place, you're probably going to have a tiny little white line around it. There is a hack for that. I've seen a lot of videos recently, but they've been using it on glitter HTV. You can do it with this too, and I'll have a video out for that as well. So I'm going to cover it as well as I can on this end. And then looks like I need to stretch my shirt just a little bit to get it to fit correctly under my design. And that's probably because the shirt and the HTV might have shrunk a little bit with that pressing. So I'm getting this right side lined up. And then you can see it's humped up a little bit. Again, it's probably because the shirt, the HTV, shrunk just a little bit with that pressing. So I'm stretching the shirt out. And I'm trying to cover up all that white vinyl as well as I can. Let's go ahead and put several pieces of tape on to hold it where it needs to be. Take your time doing this part of the process because once you've pressed this, there's no going back. Okay, I think that's going to look pretty good. Like I said, I might have some tiny little white pieces showing. I'll be okay with that. Now I want to have some either butcher paper or copy paper, printer paper over the top of it just to protect the top platen of my heat press. I'm going to lay the shirt down and I want to get the collar off of the pad because these collars, if you put a lot of pressure on them, you can get a weird kind of shiny texture. That looks good. So we'll lay this down, push my pads back into place. And again, we are pressing this at 385 for 45 seconds. All right, let's see how this turned out. I have really high hopes for this. I've loved this material, more so than I really thought I would. I bought this material and then I waited a long time before I tried it out. But look at that. Now there's the little white stuff I was talking about, so I didn't have it laid down perfectly. But look at that. That is so pretty. You can't do that with sublimation on a dark shirt. You can't do that with sublimation on cotton. If you have a DTF printer or you order DTF sheets, you can do it. But if you want to do one or two shirts here and there with a special design, I think this is a really nice product. Here's the final result. It is very vibrant, very cute. It has stretchability. I think this is a great product. And it really is an easy product to work with. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And until my next video, bye-bye.